Hello, welcome to your Ed Puzzle video number 2. For this video, you're going to answer a few questions that are going to be in the video. You're going to answer those questions in your vocabulary and questions doc. So if you can please make sure that you have that document open right now. If you can label it vocabulary questions number 4, Thursday or Friday, depending on what period you're in, 211, 212, depending on whether you have me on Thursday or Friday. So if you can make sure that it's opened in a new tab, that way when the video pauses with the question, you're going to type your response in your vocab and questions document. Okay. And I just went over that. The focus of this lecture, this video, is going to be on Chinese imperialism in the continent of Africa. So I'm going to be giving you some background information. Okay. You're going to be answering 2 questions in your Socratic seminar, which is going to take place next Thursday or Friday, and I'll give you that information today. 2 questions you're going to be thinking about are: the first one, is Chinese imperialism in Africa more harmful or more helpful to African nations? Okay, thinking about what's happening. And then you're going to compare it to what we've been learning about in this unit. With the second question, how is Chinese imperialism in Africa similar or different to European imperialism in Africa? Okay. Our job is going to be to think about how we should interpret China's actions in the continent and the impact that they have on different African countries. That's what this lecture is going to get you to think about, and then you'll have sources that you're going to read next week. Okay, going back to what we started with this unit, we learned about cobalt mining, right? The Congolese were selling their cobalt to Chinese corporations. We're going to be thinking about how Chinese corporations ended up buying cobalt from Congolese miners. And we're also going to be thinking about whether the impact is more harmful or helpful to African nations. And this is one example, right, that we've already learned about and talked about how the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative is impacting African countries. By this point, you should have already watched video number 1 that was on the Belt and Road Initiative. That video, just to remind you, provided context about how projects in Africa may fit into China's plans for increased trade, access to resources. Cobalt is one example, oil is another example, and increased power. Okay, that's a quick recap of what the video that you watched, video 1, was about. We're actually not going to watch it. Okay. Right, and the Belt and Road Initiative, right, there was a Silk Road that was used for thousands of years that connected China, Asia, parts of Asia, and Europe. China is trying to expand that trade route to make it easier for countries to trade with China. It means that China can sell products in other countries and that other countries can sell products to China. And then it also makes it easier, right? It increases trade. And then it also makes China seem stronger or more powerful because they have more control over areas and ports. Okay. Some additional information, right? This idea of the Belt and Road Initiative was started in 2013 by President Xi Jinping. He announced his plan. He named it the Belt and Road Initiative, named after the Silk Road, and it includes 71 countries. In your Unit 1 vocabulary doc, please answer question A. What is the Belt and Road Initiative? You can use the information that I provided, or you can use your response from your video 1 Ed Puzzle. Okay, we're going to start with the Chinese perspective. Why would China want to spend all this money in Africa? Okay. we're going to start by thinking about new export markets. And these are new places where a country can sell and buy products, things that are made in different countries, right? So we learned about the Belt and Road Initiative. That project makes it easier to export. That means that other countries that you can send, or a country sends good to another country for sale. So, for example, China can send its products to African countries. And if we're thinking about Africa, Africa can also export its products to China. Okay. On the other hand, China can also import products. It means that they can bring in goods into a country from abroad. And African countries can sell products to China. And we saw that, right? One example we've talked about is cobalt mining. When we're thinking about cobalt mining, it's easy for Africa to export products to China, and it's easy for China to import products from China. So both countries are supposed to benefit. And the Belt and Road Initiative makes it easier, right, for countries to export and import to each other. And then the other thing before I move on is new export markets, right? Those are new places, right? China, if it goes into a country, it has a new place where they can buy and sell products. Another reason is, if we're connecting it back to, we're thinking about political motives for imperialism, right? China would want to spend money in African countries because it looks like, or it increases their influence and prestige. China seems stronger and more powerful, right? If they're building this large project with different roads, different ports, and then other countries have to play by China's rules, especially if China has control over ports, bases, or mines. And then the other thing that connects back to the idea of imperialism is access to national resources that China's economy needs. Natural resources are things like oil, metals, cobalt would be another one. Okay. Right. And we need those natural resources to make things like phones, like your gasoline that your car needs. Okay. Countries, right, end up trading with each other because they're both supposed to benefit from trade. This has led to more globalization, and we see that with the Belt and Road Initiative that involves 70 countries that are all interconnected. Okay. So as China's economy has grown, Chinese banks are using the money to invest in African countries. So we see in this chart, right, the increase in trade increase in loans to Africa from China. We see a huge increase in 2013, and then it remains high. There's a huge bump in 2016, and it just has remained high. Okay. In your Unit 1 vocabulary doc, you're going to answer question B. Why is China interested in spending its money on African countries? I want you to use at least one of these words: political motive, new export market, or natural resources to explain. Okay. We talked about the Chinese perspective. The other perspective is the African perspective, right? Why would African nations take money from Chinese banks? Okay. One reason is that loans from China allow African countries to build and improve their infrastructure. Infrastructure are buildings, roads, power supplies, things that are needed to allow a society or a country to run. Okay. Other examples are dams. They produce electricity. While we all need electricity, high-speed trains, roads that make things and people move faster. And then it also allows countries to make more things that they can then sell. So this is one reason, right? Infrastructure is a reason why African countries would take the money to build infrastructure. Okay. That improved infrastructure is supposed to create economic growth. That's what countries want. Economic growth is an increase in the amount of things and money produced by a country, right? The more things you make, the more things you're able to export or sell, the more money that people and countries have. People need economic growth because it creates jobs, and jobs give people access to money. Okay. So even though China has focused on building the Belt and Road Initiative, they've also loaned money for other projects around the world. If we pay close attention to Africa, it's a map. All of the dots look at or stand for major projects. So there are a lot of projects in Africa. Okay, going back to your Unit 1 vocabulary, if you can answer question C, why are African countries interested in taking Chinese loans? If you can use the vocab words infrastructure or economic growth to explain. Okay, so we've given both perspectives, the Chinese and the African perspective. Now we're going to think about what are some issues that are coming up. What's the catch? Okay. One catch, right, is that some loans given out to African countries have been called predatory loans. And predatory loans are unfair lending rules or terms that benefit the country or the person that is lending the money, right? And remember why African countries are borrowing that money. But why give someone a loan that they cannot repay, right? What's the benefit if someone is not going to be able to pay back the money? One reason is the idea of debt trap diplomacy. So the country that is lending the money intentionally gives too much money so that that country is in debt. And when that country is in debt, they then ask for something else that can be more expensive. Okay, so they lend this money, they know they're not going to pay it back, but it means that, for example, a country can control a part of another country. They can control a port, they can control a dam, something else. Okay. The other reason, right, is that China gains strategic benefits if countries can't repay the loans. So, for example, if an African country does not repay its loan, then Chinese countries end up owning the infrastructure. Okay. There are also accusations against China, right, that it's extractive, that it's only focused on removing or selling natural resources like copper, oil, and metals. And then the other thing we're going to think about is the idea of economic imperialism, which is a situation in which one country has a lot of economic power or influence over others. And you're going to be thinking about that next. So going back to your Unit 1 vocabulary doc, you're going to answer question D. Do you think this is economic imperialism? I want you to choose what vocabulary you want to use to explain your answer. Now you're going to answer question E. How is China's presence in Africa similar or different from British? And I'm going to change this now to European. How is China's presence in Africa similar or different from European imperialism? Okay, make sure you finish your answers.